My garden isn't just a patch of soil with flowers, it's the heart of my home, the sanctuary where I poured in hours of sweat, love, and composted perfection. Tucked right at the corner of Chestnut Bend, it was a living masterpiece. Rows of royal blue hydrangeas lined the front gate, while tiger lilies stood proudly near the porch like floral sentinels. The smell of jasmine floated through the air in the evening, mingling with rosemary and lavender. My raised beds were an emerald grid of brilliance, hosting heirloom tomatoes, ghost peppers, golden zucchinis, and eggplants so shiny you could see your reflection in them. Bees danced over the lemon balm, and a pair of doves made a home in the willow tree shading my compost pile. It wasn't just a garden, it was a living, breathing expression of everything I loved. Welcome to Prodigy Tales. Make sure you like and subscribe for your top-notch HOA drama. It wasn't just plants thriving here. I had a small pond with koi fish the color of molten copper and grapevines curling around the trellis like they were born to pose for vineyard ads. Kids from the neighborhood walked by with their parents and pointed in awe. "Mommy, look! That's the magic garden," they'd say. Even the mailman slowed down just to take it in, and trust me, he had seen it all. I worked on it every single morning, sun hat on, gloves dirtied, and hands deep in the soil like a proud artist covered in paint. My garden won first place 3 years in a row at the local horticulture contest, and I had enough blue ribbons to stitch a quilt. Then one morning I spotted a strange hoofprint near my azaleas. Odd, I thought. Could be a raccoon. But by the next day, the hoofprints were back, larger, deeper. My chive bed looked like it had been danced on by a square dancing elephant. My prized roses were missing their heads. I squinted into the distance and saw something white dart behind the neighbor's hedge. It wasn't a raccoon, it was a goat. A big, smug-looking goat chewing something suspiciously pink. My peonies. My next morning unfolded like a badly scripted soap opera. I stepped into my garden wearing my usual straw hat and rubber boots, only to find hoof prints stamped over my strawberry patch and a mound of torn-up basil. The goat was back, this time with an entourage. 3 more bleeding menaces had joined the original invader, and they were grazing as if they'd been personally invited to a 5-course feast. I watched from behind a fern, fists clenched and heart pounding. No subtlety, just pure goat gluttony. They munched, they trampled, they disrespected every inch of my labor. I grabbed my phone and marched over to Karen's front porch, determination fueling each step. Karen appeared as I rang her bell. Perfect posture, arms crossed, sunglasses on, lips pursed like she was about to announce a death sentence. She exhaled sharply as if the universe owed her an apology. "What is it now?" she asked, voice saccharine but edged with annoyance. "Your goats are hosting a buffet in my garden," I said, voice low but fierce. "They've eaten my marigolds, decimated my kale, and dug craters in my melons." She blinked, looked over her perfectly trimmed lawn, then glanced at the carnage behind me, gouged soil, droppings, and a goat audaciously chewing lettuce like it was dessert. A neighbor peered over the fence and gave me a sympathetic nod. Solidarity in suburbia. Karen sighed dramatically and leaned back. "I'll look into it," she said, as if she'd offered to consult the goat oracle. I raised an eyebrow. "Look into it? Every time I turn around, another goat is munching my mint or trampling my tulips." She shrugged, flipping her hair. "They're free-range HOA goats. They have rights." "Goats have rights?" I repeated, incredulous. She smirked. "Yes, my goats are community property, equally HOA members." My jaw dropped so hard I had to catch it. "Community property? They're not wild deer that wander in. They're owned by you." She folded her arms, unflappable. "I'm a board member. They can roam." The sun blazed overhead, baking my fury and illuminating her smug face. My garden, my labor, my pride, was being sacrificed to her entitled livestock. The air felt heavy with injustice. I turned on my heel to leave, head spinning with rage, but as I walked away, I felt something shift inside me. A plan began to hatch. One so deviously delicious, so wickedly satisfying, it would make Karen's goats think twice before crossing my fence again. I could feel steam rising off my neck as I marched back over to Karen's pristine porch the very next afternoon. The goat quartet had returned, trampling my baby spinach into a sodden pulp and leaving behind a symphony of bleats that sounded like taunts. I yanked on her doorbell once, and then again. When she flung the door open, she seemed genuinely startled to see me, even though I practically lived at her threshold these days. Do something about your goats, I demanded, voice sharp as pruning shears. They're destroying everything I grow. She glanced over my shoulder at the heap of uprooted chard and snapped her fingers. Oh, that, she said with the faintest chuckle. I've checked them. They're fine, healthy even. They eat where they want. My eyebrows shot up. Check them? You mean you watched them gorge themselves on my sunflowers and eggplants? She nodded, as though agreeing to watch a circus performance. They're HOA goats. They have equal rights to communal grazing. I drew in a deep breath, tasting frustration and dirt. If they're HOA, then I'm HOA, right? So do you mind if I wander into your living room and pick daisies off your couch cushions? She blinked like I'd invented a brand new idiom. That's not the same. It's no different from my garden being treated like a goat buffet, I countered. Your livestock gets special HOA privileges, but my flowers, my vegetables, they get zero respect. She pursed her lips. Your garden isn't communal property, she said coldly. Plants don't vote. I stifled a laugh. So HOA members get votes, but plants, pets, even people who live here don't. She flipped her hair and locked her front door in my face. I pounded my fists on the wood until it felt like splinters would fly. The neighborhood watched in stunned silence as Karen turned on her heel and strolled inside. My blood felt like lava. No mediation, no apology, no plan, just her smug assurance that my garden was fair game. I retreated to the edge of my lawn and stared at the massacre of greens. Spontaneously, my mind raced through possibilities: fences, legal threats, electrified barriers. But beneath the strategic plotting, a darker, juicier idea began to bubble up. Something that would shift this power imbalance in a way Karen would never forget. Something sweet, reckless, and gloriously satisfying. I woke before dawn, heart hammering with anticipation as I gathered my ingredients. Garlic, rosemary, thyme, sea salt, and peppercorns, freshly crushed. In secret, I'd lured one of Karen's escape artist goats into a handiwork of stainless steel traps baited with alfalfa. When the sun peeked over the rooftops, I wheeled the bleary-eyed culprit into my backyard, its bleats echoing like desperate pleas. I tied its leash to my weathered butcher block and whispered apologies only a gardener could muster. Sorry, buddy, I muttered, but you broke the peace treaty. The goat's wide eyes reflected the morning light as I set to work. First, I trimmed its woolly coat, the scent of lanolin mingling with the damp grass. I rubbed the meat with olive oil and seasoned it generously with garlic paste and chopped rosemary from my herb bed, and the very same rosemary Karen's goats had trampled countless times. Then I surrounded the goat with lemon slices and sprigs of thyme, sealing everything in a roasting pan that glistened under my patio light. As the oven heated, I poured myself a glass of chilled white wine, letting the cool tang sharpen my resolve. While the goat sizzled away, I spread a picnic in the garden, a long wooden table set with my china, crystal glasses, and silverware polished to a mirror shine. Neighbors began to mill about, drawn by the irresistible aroma. I greeted each of them warmly, playing the gracious host as if Karen's goats had never poisoned my sanctuary. They complimented the table, admired the china, and asked about the mysterious feast. I winked and said only, "It's farm to table at its finest." Just as the meat turned golden brown, Karen herself appeared at the edge of my lawn, curiosity and horror battling on her face. Her pristine white blouse was speckled with dew, and her perfectly coiffed hair looked out of place amid the wild bouquets of my garden. She gasped when she saw the feast laid out, then staggered back as I carved into the goat, its tender flesh releasing a mouth-watering aroma. "This is your goat," I called to her, voice calm and triumphant. "You should know it's delicious, free-range, organic, zero HOA regulations." Her jaw hung open as neighbors murmured approval, savoring forkfuls of juicy meat. The sun caught the ribbons on my fence, the first-place blue ones, and gleamed. Karen's face burned hotter than my oven had ever been. The end. Please like and subscribe for more HOA showdowns like this. Do you think Karen got what she deserved? Comment below.